Representative Charles Key is a 41-year-old businessman and not a lawyer, he's quick to point out, now in his 5th term as a member of the state legislature. Many of the victims' families live in his district, in the western portion of Oklahoma City. Mr. Key sensed there may be an ongoing federal cover-up in this case and attempted to initiate a legislative investigation conducted by a House committee. His efforts were swiftly foiled.
We asked for the Speaker of the House to appoint a special House committee, not a joint Senate House committee, not one created by the governor or anyone else, but a House committee, because the nice thing about members of the House, they have 2-year terms, they're closely aligned with their constituency because of that, smaller constituency, so typically the House feels a little bit closer to the people and moves a little bit quicker on things. And that's why I asked for a House committee investigation. We asked the Speaker of the House to have an interim committee special investigation. We do that all the time, like probably most legislative bodies do. We have interim committee studies. So this wouldn't be anything that would be out of the ordinary except the topic involved. And we were flatly turned down. Much like the governor said, the Speaker said that we should have more faith in the investigative bodies and that any information we had should be turned over to them. And as many people well know, most of the information that we were having problems with and still have problems with today have already been turned over to them. They're already aware of that information. The problem is they've been giving an official explanation for some of these elements in what happened on the 19th that don't add up with reality and fact, according to many experts.
Do you feel like there's some kind of cover-up going from the federal side of the fence?
I'm convinced that there are some, at the very minimum, there are some in the government that are covering up certain information. Now, whether there's a big conspiracy, an overall cover-up of some big conspiracy, we don't know. But we all have a right to know, especially the people in this city and this state and the victims and their families that were affected by this.
So this was your whole idea in having an independent investigation. Do you think there's any chance of this happening at a later date?
It's possible. Frankly, I don't have that much faith in our legislative leadership to make that decision, to turn around a decision that they've already made, unfortunately.
What did Governor Keating have to say about the idea?
Unfortunately, Governor Keating was very critical when he didn't have to be. He and I being of the same party, I thought that he would maybe adhere to Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment and not be critical of a fellow Republican. But he was somewhat critical of me and my request for the investigation when he didn't have to be. And he's been critical of just about everyone that has brought any questions up about what happened on the 19th and whether there was foreknowledge and a number of other issues.
We asked Representative Key if there could have been a Middle Eastern connection.
We know that in the first few days after the bombing that there were Middle Eastern or Iraqi individuals that were believed to be involved and that were seen leaving the scene of the crime and that were pursued by the authorities. And one of those individuals was called John Doe number 2, and they even put a $2 million price tag on his head. Looked for him for a long time, and then a couple of months later, they decide that there was no John Doe number 2 at all. And we know that there is definitely a Middle Eastern connection in this crime. We have other people that have given eyewitness testimony, given 100% ID of individuals that were at the scene of the crime that were of Middle Eastern descent. So we know that there were people involved other than McVeigh that were of Middle Eastern connections.
Have you any idea why the FBI would suddenly begin to ignore these people?
It has been reported that there are people in Oklahoma City that are former Iraqi soldiers that fought in Saddam Hussein's army in Desert Storm. and that at least one of these individuals may be connected to the bombing in some way. I don't know if that's true yet. We need to know if that's true. We need that to be pursued fully. And if it is, I can see where some individuals may not want that to be made public because of how the public may react to giving asylum to Iraqi soldiers that we fought against in a very recent war. And that might be connected to a tragedy like this. That's pure speculation. But we have that information from good sources, and maybe that's part of the reason why this has been swept under the rug, apparently.
Indeed, it may have been swept under the rug thus far, but there are private citizens who refuse to let it remain there.
Now, what caused those explosions, we don't know exactly. But the people have a right to know what those explosions and who was responsible for that damage.